Hello, welcome to The Big Fight, where today we are going to look straight on, head on at one of the issues that has been one of the biggest talking points for quite some time. And I suspect it is a subject that we're going to have to keep on coming back to be debating, to be discussing, to be saying, where is it that as a country that we seem to be heading? And I'm, of course, referring to the entire question of communalism, communal polarization. How should we be dealing with it in the year 2017? Of course, it's on new debate. The question of secularism and communalism has been around for hundreds of years, and certainly ever since independence, more so in recent years. But I think it is something that needs to be looked at, because we've been seeing a range of really sad, brutal attacks across the spectrum. We saw those waves of lynchings where innocent Muslims were quite often killed, which was, of course, something that was shocking and needed to be condemned. You then saw a wave of communalism and rioting that took place in Bengal. Innocent Hindus were killed there. Again, that is something that was shocking. Then we saw this ghastly attack on Amarnath Yatra and the Amarnath Yatris. Again, people got killed out there. And each one of these terrible incidents then led to a debate breaking out. How should this be viewed? What was happening? Who the innocent are? Who the guilty are? How it should be handled? How should the media be handling it? How should all of us as civil society be handling it? Should there be condemnation? And by the way, then it came down into sub-discussions that started to take place and a rhetoric that started to come. And let me just try and summarize for you before I welcome our guests and go into what should be done. Let me just try and take you a couple of viewpoints that seem to be emerging. One, there was a strong viewpoint that was expressed that India is now taking a turn for the right. And there was a view that, look, the anti-beef brigade is on a rampage, Gau Rakshaks are wreaking havoc, fake videos are being deliberately circulated, elements are trying to define everything as Muslims versus others, partly for political benefits, right-wing trolls on social media are shutting everyone down, and it's a concerted effort to brand everyone who doesn't agree with a certain point of view as anti-national, and that is something that is wrong. So this is a particular viewpoint that was coming out. I'm just summarizing some of the viewpoints. You'll have others also there. Then there was another viewpoint which was coming out, certainly from the right, which was saying, look, what we are really seeing is minority appeasement in the name of secularism. You should accept the fact that all terrorists are belonging to a particular religion. There is no real Kashmiriyat that is taking place. The independent media is completely and totally biased against the Hindus, and India in some way needs to be reclaimed from all of this. That is another particular view that was coming forward. And I'm sure as the debate goes on, we'll come out with other points of view. All of which, to my mind, of course, partly begs the question, because at least there were others who will argue, in between all the various extremes, that the answer to all of this should be actually fairly simple. All of us should be looking at it as Indians and saying, if an innocent Indian is killed and an innocent Indian is killed anywhere in the country, whether that's an innocent Muslim who's being killed or an innocent Hindu who's being killed, and irrespective of whether they're Muslims or Hindus doing the killing, we should be condemning it, the death of any innocent. And that also is, frankly, a view that I think many people are holding. But in the range of all of this debate that is taking place, let me welcome all of our guests to try and see what we really make of what is happening and this sense of a very polarized atmosphere. Is it because we are spending more time on social media, so we are encountering the polarization a lot more, or is it actually happening in society? Well, joining us now, Rana Ayub, who's certainly very much there, fighting those battles on social media on a daily basis, so it's great to have you with us. Shiv Shakti Bakshi is former president of the ABVP at JNU and is the executive editor of Kamal Sandesh, of course, very closely associated with the BJP. Great to have you with us. Tehseen Poonawala, who's been one of the organizers of the Not in My Name campaign. Again, that question came up in recent times as to whether that is something which is only going to happen when Muslims are killed or whether it extends elsewhere. You're also a core member of Masuka, which is one of the campaigns that is trying to fight very hard to try and end the lynchings that are actually taking place. So it's great to have you with us. Sushil Pandit is an activist with the Kashmiri Pandit community who sometimes says that why is it that not enough was said when the Pandits were actually targeted way back in the 1990s and other issues. So we'll come to you for more on that. Sujat Bukhari is the editor-in-chief of the Srinagar-based daily Rising Kashmir. And finally, Professor Arna Bhattacharya is joining us, Associate Professor, IIT Kanpur, somebody who's been very active on social media also, very strongly espouses some of the views that I was referring to a little earlier. But do you tend to get the feeling that a debate or a discussion is now being polarized into these two sort of extreme camps?
It is. It's been happening over a period of time. It's been simmering over a period of time because, you know, when we saw the murders of rationalists and then there were people who returned their awards, they were labeled as the award Wapsi gang. Now when you have a campaign which is not in my name, which was against lynching, again the BJP and the members of the right wing labeled them as people who were funded by the ISI and Mossad and whatnot. So there is a culture of intolerance, whether we like it or not, whether the right wing does not like it. There is a culture of intolerance. So what has been simmering in India right now, whether they're lynchings...
And it's also being fined by TV channels. Let's be clear about it. Every time there's an attack, for example, if there's a breakdown in security, normally you would expect that the question should go to the government. It's the government's responsibility, the central government and the state government's responsibility to look after law and order and look after security. But instead of asking any questions to the government, these days questions are asked,
the buck does not...
What does Rana Ayub have to do about it? So how does it feel to be...
What does Rana Ayub, whether Rana Ayub is condemning what is happening to the, you know, when Amarnath Yatris are killed, whether people with certain surnames are condemning it or not, the buck does not stop at the Prime Minister's door.
So how does it feel to be taking the responsibility for law and order and security in the whole country?
It feels terrific. I mean, you know, that the buck does not stop at the Home Minister's door and our door. It feels terrific that, you know, you attribute a great deal of power and responsibility to us. But unfortunately, that's not a great thing for a democracy like us.
Okay.
Actually, the manner in which the politics has been played in this country post-independence and even prior to the independence also, a kind of narrative was sought to be built on the lines of minority exclusivism. So actually, I think this has done a lot of damage to the entire fabric of this country, the social fabric of this country. For example, if you see the example of Kashmir and also the West Bengal, means how Hindu-Muslim unity or the syncretic culture which prevailed in Jammu and in Kashmir Valley and also in West Bengal, that has been attacked. And when it was attacked by certain kind of communal agenda and under the garb of some like Wahhabism and all, at that point of time, a politics of minority exclusivism or the politics of minority appeasement or vote bank politics has been played.
You spoke about the syncretic culture that has often been there. Now, it's very interesting because at a time when this attack took place, this absolutely shocking, horrible attack on Amarnath Yatris, a lot of people, when they were talking about it and when they were saying that this is a blot on exactly what you said, the syncretic traditions of Jammu and Kashmir that there was, including by the Home Minister, who did refer then to the fact that we had this really interesting exchange. I want to put it up on the screen for all of you. You had the Home Minister saying this, saying that the fact that many Kashmiris have actually condemned the attack in Amarnath shows that Kashmiriyat is not dead. And immediately Rajnath Singh was actually trolled very aggressively on social media by a number of people who said it. Then this particular comment came out from a young lady who took him on that and saying, what on earth are you talking about? Rajnath Singh had to then come out and say this and saying, I am responsible for everybody's security and all Kashmiris are not terrorists. So nobody will accuse Rajnath Singh of being being guilty of appeasement politics, and at least in his entire career, I don't think anyone's accused him of that. But if he says something about syncretic culture, he gets attacked.
No. Actually, see, what I am saying, the damage has already been done by the politics of minority appeasement and the narrative of minority exclusivism, which has been
what you are saying right now is a reflection
throughout the time.
So you are saying that what is happening right now.
I am giving you an example. The case of Junaid is there, case of Kartik Ghosh is there. What kind of response is there in this country? Kartik Ghosh murdered in Bengal. What kind of response the same civil society has given? And Junaid was also murdered. What kind of response the civil society has given?
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Is civil society reacting in both cases? Because his fundamental point is to say, yes, if there is outrage if Junaid is killed, there should be outrage if Kartik is killed. There should be outrage if the Amarnath Yatris are killed. There should be outrage if Pehlu Khan is killed. Any innocent gets killed, there should be outrage. It should be equal.
Absolutely. So just before I start, I want to clarify, I was not one of the main organizers of Not In My Name. That was team members from Masuka who were also organizing it there.
Fair enough.
First of all, like Rana said, very responsible that civil society has to take the onus of handling these sort of situations, and the buck does not stop at the Prime Minister's office. However, I individually believe my Prime Minister is a very, very considerate man. I mean, it takes special consideration to be concerned about fires in Portugal and talk about it. It takes special consideration to be bothered about kutte ka bacha, I'm quoting the Prime Minister, gaadi ke niche aa gaya, and he gets bothered about it. So the Prime Minister is a very considerate man. So don't blame our Prime Minister. I trust our Prime Minister completely. What is the solution? The solution is this. The Prime Minister comes on television and he cries, "Inko mat maro, mujhe maro," quoting the Prime Minister. Bhai, democracy hai, koi kise kyun mare? Shouldn't the rule of law apply? Anybody who kills, from Kashmir to Kerala, from West Bengal to Gujarat, should be in jail. Why are they not in jail? When we are talking about our law, Masuka, we are not talking that this law should only be applicable in Delhi. When you, and I want to correct you, Vikram, when you say Muslims were being lynched, I disagree with it. Muslims were not the only one being lynched. In Delhi, a gentleman called Ravindra was lynched. A fan of Prime Minister Narendra Modi who asked somebody, do not urinate on the road. A Swachh Bharat fan. He was lynched. I think somewhere down the line, all of us need to introspect what has happened to us as society. As society, we youngsters are lynching people. It's the most barbaric thing to do. We are filming it on modern phones and we are circulating it. The audacity of us to circulate it. There is no fear of the rule of law.
Yeah.
Our law is not saying that it should be, or our fight, or as civil society. We are not saying what is happening in Kashmir is right, what's happening in West Bengal is right. We are saying everything needs to stop. But, and my last point out here, I am also a petitioner against the Gau Rakshaks. The Honorable Prime Minister, who I really respect, said 70 se 80% Gaurak dhanda karte, quoting the Prime Minister. He said inka dozier banna chahiye. Now Prime Minister is busy, he was Israel, Germany, now he's come back to India. So he didn't make the dozier. I went to the Honorable Supreme Court against Gau Rakshaks. I got a notice, just one point. 3 dates since then, Vikram, 17th August is next date. Central government has not replied to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So I think somewhere down the line, we have to understand what is going on.
Arnab Bhattacharya, let me come to you for an overall comment and then I'm going to then come to the others as well. The basic point that, all right, I think what Tehseen was trying to say is we should react no matter who is getting killed. What's the issue with that? And part of what Tehseen was saying, I also want to throw to you, the fact that people are circulating videos of people being killed, there is a certain element of fake images being circulated, especially on social media, that is fanning the fires, and that is something we do need to find an answer for.
A couple of things is that in the social media, the reactions are really extreme. But a couple of reactions I must say is that the communal harmony, to protect communal harmony is not just the responsibility of a single community. Both the communities should come up. See, when this Facebook post that started all this thing in Bengal, that's a bad post, I agree, I completely agree. But you should understand that when Makbul Fida Hussain viewed Saraswati, Devi Saraswati in nude, that is also a bad thing. And when this Tobi Sujato in Bengali, he wrote an extremely obnoxious poem, that is also needs to be condemned, but you cannot take that out and fight it out. So I think the so-called right wing, I don't want to be associated with this term, but the so-called right wing, it's kind of right in saying that the Muslim assassination is going on at such a level that these kind of things are just such natural. I mean, people reacting on social media and people trying to raise all these things that what is happening in Bengal. Because there was a clear issue that the media was not doing its job properly. I'm trying to say this because for one day there was no report on what is happening in Bengal by any of the national media. And the Bengali media was completely silent. So the only thing that people think, the only way to spread news, good or bad, false or rumors, whatever, is through social media. So that's a very important thing, and that we cannot ignore. So that's my point. Social media is a very strong thing, and that is what is going to happen naturally if the media does not do its role properly.
Mr. Bhattacharya, there is one small issue with that, which at least I'm finding, and I'm not sure the others are finding as well. It's also sometimes a question of selective reading. Like, I'll give you an example. 24 hours after the Amarnath, the brutal attack on Amarnath Yatris, when many people, all television channels had only been reporting that. When I, for example, and many others had tweeted literally dozens of times about it, as is natural for anybody else. You will still have people coming and saying, why is it that you are not mentioning this? Or the Bashir Hat riots. Actually, it was covered. It's covered repeatedly. You can see it on people's social media accounts. You can see it on websites. It's being covered. But a narrative continues to be built up. Why are you not reporting it? And when you respond to somebody saying, just scroll down my timeline, see for yourself, I've talked about it 30 times in the last 2-3 days, then there is no reply. So to some extent, even that particular outrage is slightly manufactured. It's not based on facts.
The Bushi Gujarat riot started, or whatever the trouble started on Saturday night or even earlier. So, but there was no news. But I completely agree with you. Amarnath is a separate case. The media has been covering it quite aptly, I would say. So again, that comes to it. But there are places, Bengal is one of those things where I think the riots that happen almost every month now are not given that much media attention as in other places. So again, there's a debate. I agree with you that it's not always the fault of the national media, but that has been building up in the social media. So news spread much more fast in social media, and unless those are actually countered by the national news channels, because then there is more scope of false rumors spreading. So the media should play those very carefully.
There is a slight issue in this, and the slight issue is that he's completely right that social media is breaking stories sometimes faster than the national media is. That's true. It's possible that social media is being able to identify issues before anybody else has woken up, and that's true. I think everyone in the media these days is constantly on their Twitter and Facebook and others to get the first flashes as they are coming in. The danger, the flip side of that is, sometimes social media, and I'm particularly talking about, I think, WhatsApp more than anything else, sometimes Twitter also, a lot of what you're seeing is actually wrong. Yeah. And that's where the danger is. And so sometimes people say, why is it that the media is not showing this? Like this image, for example. Why is it that the media is not showing this image of this lady having her sari pulled off? Answer, the media did not show this story because it's not true. That was a still taken from a Bhojpuri film. Or another example, this particular image of this particular, this car being upside down in flames. Why is it that the media did not talk about this particular incident? Answer, this is not even Bengal right now. This was a picture taken from the Gujarat riots of 2002. So here's the flip side. Sometimes what is being said, that why is it that this is not being reported, is because it's not true.
Well, because I don't want to see it. I think this whataboutery that is going on with the right wing, it's very nauseating. I mean, you don't see a murder or a lynching as just that. Why is it that they assume that what happened in Not In My Name in various parts of the country was for the Muslim community? Everybody spoke about what happened to Ayub in Jammu. Why is that not spoken about? I mean, whenever you go on television debates, RSS spokesperson say, why don't you talk about what's happening in Kannur? CPIM activists are killing. Why do you choose to neglect or ignore what are the articles that we have written? Now, look at this. I mean, we're talking about the West Bengal riots. The BJP spokesperson, national spokesperson Nupur Sharma, Swapan Das Gupta, everybody has been tweeting images of the 2002 Gujarat riots. Has there been any accountability on the part of the BJP, which basically, kind of, throws the ball saying,
I thought Nupur was busy filing FIRs against
you. She filed an FIR against me for calling the presidential nominee as somebody who was not the right candidate. I think it was a democratic right, or also a journalistic opinion. When something like that happens,
these
I think
days all of these things are slightly subjective, because we are seeing even people who are
I'm just saying, when those in
who
power,
are putting memes on the Prime Minister. So actually, that's an interesting. Maybe a separate big fight. It's an interesting question that a meme can sometimes lead to an FIR, but the circulation of fake, communally provocative videos that are leading to riots is not necessarily
and getting in this minority appeasement bit I think it's just deflecting from the original issue, because there's no such thing as minority appeasement which is happening. Even
no
from
such thing as minority appeasement. Sushil Pandey, let me get you on that.
No, I think nothing could have been farther from the truth. The point is, while we get bogged down by specific incidents that happened yesterday, day before, or a few months back, what we are beginning to see is an accumulation of decades of grievance, a problem which is now beginning to erupt and create a backlash. For decades, you saw politicians bending over backwards, obscenely appeasing and building a vote bank. You saw intransience. For example, I'll give you 1990, one of the flashpoints of Babri Masjid. The argument, stock argument, was that there was no temple there. And therefore, the entire argument about Babri Mosque built on a broken temple, demolished temple, is wrong. At that time, articles were written, okay, if that is the litmus test, then you can see a demolished temple in Kashi, Gyanvapi. You can see a demolished temple in Mathura. Then go do something about that. Again, the goalpost is shifted, and the entire issue is mired in court cases. There is an accumulated angst there. Talk about 1990, Jammu and Kashmir, exodus of an entire community, and nothing has been done. And all those who are the flag bearers of secularism in this country are deafeningly silent about it.
Okay.
There are several such issues. Let me come back to, in Tamil Nadu, there have been 36 murders. Not one has been solved, and all have been targeted Hindu activists. There are a series of issues where you always weigh in, you see a certain mindset, a certain agenda-driven crowd weighing in for one side and then finishing off with some customary, very perfunctory kind of statement or condemnation for the other side. And you see the difference.
But you see, that's why...
I'll give you the latest example.
I mean,
we all know how Kashmir erupts when it is disapproving of something.
Yeah.
When one terrorist is dead in an encounter, how Kashmir erupts. You have 7 dead, unarmed, innocent pilgrims and mere perfunctory statements from the leaders would do.
Hang on. Let's face it, there's a separatist movement in the Kashmir Valley. Let's face it, there's a large section.
It's a jihad in the Kashmir Valley.
Whatever it is, I'm not going to, you can call it,
Yes.
you can, by the way, there's...
No, but it's not in a watertight compartment and
I
rest
get
of the
it, but you
country
can't-
watches it
but you
every day
can't- yes.
and you see
By the way,
the
rest of
change
the
in
country-
responses.
But you can't say what somebody who's a Kashmiri separatist or a Kashmiri jihadi or a Kashmiri Wahhabist is saying. You can't take, and I'm seeing this happening constantly, by the way, which is why I'm saying this. You can't take that person's reaction and saying, oh, well, this is what the other side is saying. There is a difference. By the way, and the reason I'm saying this is, the minute anybody is saying anything contrary, you're saying, well, you are therefore part of the Bharat Ke Tukde gang. The Bharat Ke Tukde gang is actually a particular gang and it's linked to the Kashmiri jihadists. Fine, they are different. You shouldn't support them. But you can't link anybody who's disagreeing with the right as saying you belong to that.